Let us not forget everything that happens. It's by the will of Allah. Holy will. It's time to unite and stand, and we will be the best amongst men. It's not time to be extreme or do the unthinkable, but to stand together as one. Tune into Sunnahfollowers, streaming every day, various platforms. Trust me, you'll find a way. Sunnahfollowers.
She was known as the wife of the martyr, meaning that anyone who married her was sure to die a martyr. Every marriage was a love story in and of itself. Yet did she experience true happiness long enough with the husband? Join Ustada Lailanasheeba as she details the story of one of the female heroines of Islam, Atika. Alhamdulillah, wa salat, wa salam ala wa rasulullah. Welcome to our series of the heroines of Islam. The heroines of Islam, and this has become one of our popular series, along with the story of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Caliph of Abu Bakr. And I'm glad to see that the Muslims around the world, you all are liking learning about the Prophet and his companions, because this is good, because they are our role models, they are our mentors. The life coach for the Muslim is the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And our role models are those companions, because there is nothing that we experience in our everyday lives that they have not already experienced in theirs. When we met the last time for this class, which was Monday, I did the story of one of the most amazing heroines of Islam, the story of Faqita Hani. And a lot of you were surprised to learn that Hani was the Prophet Muhammad's first love. And that, subhanAllah, their life was a life spent where they tried to get married, but for some reason or another, they never could. You know, subhanAllah. Well, tonight we have another love story. And this love story encompasses more than one person. Although the heroine tonight is one, she's been married several times. And the thing with her is every husband she married, she loved. But every marriage that she was in ended with her husband being martyred. And this woman is well known in history and is also one of my favorite companions, like Hani. This woman is Atika, radiyallahu anha. And you hear her name mentioned a lot in many hadiths. Just like Hani, she became one of the first female scholars of Islam too. So as you guys can see, Aisha, radiyallahu anha, was not the only scholar. Female scholar. Okay. You had Aisha was a female scholar. You had Zainab, the daughter of Salama. She was a scholar. Also Salama. She was a woman of fiqh. She was a scholar. And now you got Hani was a scholar. You got Atika was a scholar. Subhanallah, these women became scholars of Islam. And they had many students who learned from them. And these women understood this deen better than any man living on this planet today. There is no sheikh, there is no mufti, there is no imam on this planet Earth who understands this religion better than any of those female companions. So I want you guys to sit back and listen to another beautiful love story that doesn't just encompass one, but several husbands, because this woman loved every husband that she had, and her relationship with each one was unique. The last one is going to shock you, because the last one that she married is going to disprove this lame ideology that Muslim men have today, that an old woman is not better than a young one. You would think that men would have learned that when the Prophet married Khadijah, but they didn't. Well, wait till you see who her last husband was. So let's put the PowerPoint up on the screen. I'm not going to give it away. Let me take everything down so you can screenshot. Let me hide this first. Yeah, wait a minute. Hide that. Hide. And please support this Dawah effort, guys. We are desperately in need of donations. We try to bring so many classes and lectures here for you guys. And I've just added, we brought back Dr. Ali, who's going to be doing an intensive fiqh class on the weekends, along with Dr. Jamali. You know, we're trying to bring great speakers and teachers here so you can continue to learn this thing correctly. So let's put this PowerPoint up on the screen for tonight. Give me a second. I'm going to take you guys to the fire for a minute while I got to go to Zoom first. Let me get you guys screen shared. Okay, now go back to my program here. Yeah, with the other class, unfortunately, they had a problem with the server and it went down, but we got it together. Well, I didn't get it together. They did. Okay, so here we go. Let me set it up there. Go up to the, is that my PowerPoint? Yeah. Okay, let me move this down here so I can see. Move this down here out the way so I can see. And let me screen share it large. Okay, so tonight we're going to do the story of a very eminent female companion. And this won't be the last time we hear about her, because when I do the story of a few other female companions, her name is going to come up again, because she was very active in the Dawah, and she was active in the spread of Islam. She was another one of those women that didn't have a problem going on the battlefield. All these women went on the battlefield, okay? The women didn't sit at home prostrating. They were out there with the Prophet fighting to help spread Islam. Okay, so tonight's story is going to be the story of Atika. Atika, the daughter of Zayd. Okay, let's talk about her. Atika, the daughter of Zayd. She was the daughter of Zayd ibn Nufayl. Zayd ibn Nufayl. We've talked about his name before. His name has come up before, and you've heard his name mentioned, because she was the sister of Sa'id ibn Zayd. And you guys know who Sa'id ibn Zayd was, right? He was one of the 10 companions given the great news of paradise because of his sacrifice for Allah. She was his sister. And also, guys, she was related to Umar, radiyallahu anha. She was related to Umar. She was one of his cousins. She was related to him on her father's side. So she was a cousin, a second cousin to Umar. She was the sister of Sa'id ibn Zayd, and she was the daughter of Zayd ibn Nufayl. Okay? And she was a child when the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam declared his prophethood. You know, I like to try to, like I said, none of these companions, as you guys, you should be able to see a pattern here. from the Prophet Muhammad down, nobody knows the exact age or birthday of the Prophet Muhammad or any of his companions. Allah kept it that way on purpose to prevent people from celebrating their birthdays like they did Jesus. That's why the prophet kept saying, don't do to me what they did to Jesus. Allah tried to keep that from happening by not by none of us knowing what day, how old any of these companions really were. But we estimate that she was probably a little girl when the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam declared himself to be a prophet in 610. Okay. And her brother Saeed was among the first Muslims to convert to Islam. He was one of the ones that converted to Islam through the hand of Abu Bakr. And when her brother Saeed became Muslim, that's when Atika did too. Remember, any girls back in this was the 6th century, any girls who were born in the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th century, they would bury them alive. They would only keep so many girls living. Okay, this was all over the world, not just the Arabs, but the Greeks, the Romans, the Vikings. They would only let some girls live for procreation. The ones that they allowed to live, they trained them to spar. They had to know how to defend themselves. Well, Atika was very close to her brother Saeed. He was her spar partner. Okay, just like Sophia's spar partner was her brother Hamza. Okay, Salama's spar partner was her first cousin Khalid. Well, Atika's, hers was her brother Saeed. They were close. So when he became Muslim, she did too. And just so you guys know, Atika was known as being one of the most beautiful women ever. They said her beauty was so intense that any man who saw her just fell in love with her. That's how beautiful she was. They said she had big, beautiful eyes, thick, dark eyelashes, thick, dark eyebrows. And she was just beautiful to look at. And her first husband, she was married at a young age, which was the tradition back in the 5th and 6th and 7th and 8th and 9th and 10th, 11th and 12th and 13th and 14th and 15th and 16th and 17th and 18th century too. They married their girls young. And guess who her first husband was? Her first husband was her cousin, Zayd ibn al-Khattab. Who was that? Zayd was the brother of Umar, radiallahu anha. So when she was young, she was married to her cousin Zayd, who was the brother of Umar, and he was 20 years older than her. So however old she was, he was 20 years older than her. And he too was a Muslim. And I'm sure you guys have heard my cousin Mukthar speak about Umar's brother, Zayd ibn al-Khattab. He was Muslim. He fought the Battle of Badr, the Battle of Uhud, the Battle of the Trench. He was one of the eminent companions like his brother Umar. Okay. In fact, it was when she was married to him that she migrated with him to Medina. Okay, when the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam commanded the Muslims to migrate to Medina, Umar's brother Zayd migrated there, and she was with him. She was married to Zayd there. But this marriage ended in divorce. We don't know what happened. Maybe because he was 20 years older than her. I don't know. But the marriage ended in divorce. And because Zayd, as my cousin Mukthar told you guys last week, Umar's brother Zayd was killed at the Battle of Yamama. He was one of the ones that died under the caliphate of Abu Bakr when they fought the Battle of Yamama, when many of the Quran reciters were killed. So she was divorced by that time. So we don't know what happened in their marriage. I'm assuming because she was so much younger than him. But anyway, he divorced her, and she had long since remarried. But he was her first husband. When she moved to Medina, after being divorced from Zayd, she secondly married Abdullah ibn Abu Bakr. And this is the famous hadith that you can find in Bukhari and Sahih Muslim. When Abdullah, the son of Abu Bakr, saw her, like most men, he became smitten with her. She was beautiful. Extremely beautiful. And again, I tell you guys all the time, her story is also more dalil that a woman doesn't have to cover her face. I keep telling you guys, the female companions didn't walk around covering their faces. Burqas is not part of the Arabic women's dress. I keep telling y'all that, and I keep proving it over and over and over again with these stories of these beautiful heroines. And we already know that the verse of hijab came down after the Battle of Badr. Well, guess what? She had married Abdullah, the son of Abu Bakr, after the Battle of Badr. So that's more proof she didn't cover her face. When Abu Bakr's son Abdullah saw her, he fell in love with her instantly because that's how beautiful she was. So he sent a proposal of marriage to her, and she accepted. She accepted. And he was very much in love with her. He was so in love with Atika because they say that Atika, first of all, she was a poet. Most Arabs could not read or write. Aisha, radiallahu anha, could not read or write. Of all the Prophet Muhammad's wives, only Hafsa could. That's why when Umar died, his copy of the Quran was left with Hafsa because she could read and write, the copy that he had got from Abu Bakr. That's why they left it with her. But that's a different story. But remember, the Arab women and men were not literate, most of them. Most of them could not read or write, but they were gifted with the ability to speak. They loved poetry. That's what nasheeds are. Nasheeds is an Arabic word that means poems. Anasheed, that's a poem. So Atika was very poetic, and she would recite poems, and they said she was very soft-spoken too. And by the way, this is another reason why Allah sent down the verses of the Quran telling Muslim women to make their voices loud. They say because men were mesmerized by Atika, number one, for her looks. She was beautiful to look at. And number two, when she spoke, she had a very soft voice. So that's why Allah said it's not befitting for the believing woman to speak softly, because you don't know in whose heart lurks desire. So if any woman speaks publicly, make your voice loud because of Atika. That's why I say you will never understand that Quran, guys, until you learn the history, the story of these companions. Because Atika, her voice wasn't loud like Aisha's and Salama's and Hani and them. She was naturally, by nature, very soft-spoken. And that also appealed to the men. Her beauty and the softness of her voice. So, Abu Bakr's son sent a proposal of marriage to her, and she accepted because he was handsome too. And he was very fond of her. He used to sit up underneath her. He was so in love with her that he stopped coming to the mosque to pray. When the Prophet Muhammad was would send out ask for volunteers for exhibitions, he refused to participate. They say he would sit up underneath her at home, listening to her speak, read her poetry, and just mesmerized by her. So one day, his father, Abu Bakr, went to visit him. And he said, "What is wrong with you? Ever since you married Atika, you don't come to the mosque and pray. You don't participate in any jihads." And that's when his son said, "I love her." And Abu Bakr said, "That's not love. That's obsession." He said, "You never love anyone more than Allah. Your love for her is so great that it prevents you from fulfilling your obligations." So Abu Bakr told him, "Divorce her. Divorce her now." And so back in those days, guys, when a parent parent told their child to divorce, for the Arabs, they did it. So even though he didn't want to, Abdullah divorced Atika. And then he started coming to the mosque again, but he was moping. He wasn't himself. And it just so happened that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam noticed how unhappy Abdullah was. So the Prophet Muhammad said, "Go and take her back. Go back to your wife," because that's when the verses of the waiting period of 3 months came down. The Prophet told him, "Go back and take her back." And then the Prophet raised his hands and said, "Oh Allah, balance Abdullah in his love for her. Oh Allah, balance him so that he puts you first, me second, and then her third." And so because of the supplication that the Prophet made for Abdullah, alhamdulillah, he took Atika back and he was able to love her the way a man's supposed to instead of being obsessed. But again, that's why those verses of the voice came down, because Atika had that soft, mesmerizing voice, a voice like Marilyn Monroe. Okay. And again, another reason, that you'll find that hadith in Bukhari and Muslim, how the Prophet married them back together and how the Prophet made dua, asking Allah to place the love in Abdullah's heart properly for Atika. And also Abu Bakr was happy too, because he used to hear his son at home reciting poetry, praising Atika's beauty, praising her beautiful soft voice and her beautiful temperament. So Abu Bakr was happy that the Prophet made dua, placing the love in his son's heart the way it's supposed to be. Okay? And this is why I tell all you sisters, and I tell you brothers too, perhaps you love something that Allah hates. Nowhere does Allah say a woman has to cover her face. Nowhere does Allah say a woman must be ugly. Nowhere does Allah say a woman can't wear colors. But Allah clearly says if a woman speaks publicly, like I'm doing, I'm a teacher, I'm a daya. If I'm going to be a teacher, if I'm going to be a daya, and I'm going to speak publicly, Allah commands lailanasheeba to make her voice strong. So y'all got to stop hating on me because I believe in Allah and because I am obeying him. It's not my fault that you brothers have been listening to soft-spoken women, which is haram. You're not even supposed to listen to those women speak publicly. If you're going to listen to a woman speak, her voice must be like mine. So stop hating me because I obey my Lord. Okay. So alhamdulillah, the Prophet felt sorry for Abdullah, made dua for him, asking Allah to balance the love in his heart for Atika, and Allah did. So they lived together and they were happy until, just like Zayd, her first husband, the brother of Umar, Abdullah, the son of Abu Bakr, was killed during the Battle of Taif. There was an arrow shot at him and he died from the wounds. And so here she lost her second husband. Now, we don't know what went on with her and her first husband, but everybody knows how much she loved the son of Abu Bakr. And so when he died from his wounds, she wrote a beautiful poem praising him, about how he was a good man, how he believed in Allah, how he was a good husband, and all of that. And before he died, because again, the love that Abdullah had for her was so great, as he lay on his deathbed, he said, "Oh, Atika, promise me that if you don't marry another man, if you promise to not marry anyone after me, I will give you the property that I own," because he wanted to be with her in paradise. That's how great the love that Abdullah had for Atika was. He said he wanted her and he made her promise. She swore an oath on his deathbed that she would never marry any man after him, so they could be together in paradise. A lot of you brothers trip out over the heroine. The heroine are gifts, but the heroine do not supersede the women in this world. And you brothers have to stop lying to your wives and making them jealous with that. The heroine are presents, gifts that you men will have in paradise. But nowhere does Allah say that the heroine are better than us. He says the opposite. The heroine were created to worship Allah, but we chose. And because of our faith and our choice to worship Allah alone, we are of a higher status than they are. And Abdullah, despite knowing he would have all the harem he wanted, he told Atika, he said, I want you to be my queen in paradise. So she swore on his deathbed that she would not remarry after him. And he died in Medina in the month of January. And she wrote a beautiful poem about him. This is the poem that she wrote. She said, I swear that my eye will never cease to cry for you. And I swear that my skin will forever be covered with dust. That's the poem she wrote. I mean, not wrote because she couldn't write, but that's the poem that she composed for him. And of course, when Abdullah died, his family was there. His sister, who was his sister? Aisha, radiallahu anha. Asma, radiallahu anha. They were his sisters. So they were all present when she made this oath, when he lay on his bed. Okay. And so she stayed with that oath for a while. Right after he died, many men came to her, not to her, but to her guardian, asking for her hand in marriage. And of course, she refused because of the oath. However, after her mourning period ended, one man came to propose to her and he refused to be ignored. That man was Umar, radiallahu anha. Now see, she was married to Umar's brother. This is why I tell you guys, your brother-in-law is a mahram to you. That's why you cannot be alone with them. They're lawful. They're not a mahram to you. They're lawful marriage for you. Her first husband was Umar's brother. Her second husband was the son of Abu Bakr. And she swore that she would never marry after him. But after her mourning period ended, Umar proposed to her. And when he proposed, she told him that she owned a garden, which was a gift, from Abu Bakr's son. And she told him that she swore an oath in the presence of his family that she would never marry anyone after him. Umar told her this is wrong. And this shows the hikmah, the wisdom of Umar. Umar said, how could you swear an oath like that? He said, you can never renounce something that Allah has allowed. He told her, you need to go and consult with another scholar. He says, so that way you can see that I'm not being partial. He told her, it's haram. You can't swear off something that Allah made lawful. So what Atika did was she went to Ali and look at the chain. Who was the second best? After Abu Bakr. Abu Bakr had died. Umar was the caliph now. She went to Ali, who was the fourth most knowledgeable person. And she asked him, what should I do? She said, Umar wants to marry me, but I swore an oath that I would never marry after Abdullah. And Abdullah gave me his garden as a result. Well, Ali told her the same thing Umar said. You can't make an oath like that. He said, give the garden back to Abdullah's family. And right after Ali told her that, guess who jumped in it? Y'all know. But let's talk about this first. We got this from an authentic hadith. Umar had went to her guardian and said, mention me to her for marriage. And her guardian went to her and she rejected him, saying because of the garden. And then finally, after she consulted with Ali, she agreed to marry Umar. So Umar went to her again and said, I asked for you for marriage. And then he left to let her make up her mind. And that's when, after a while, she sent a client of hers to tell him, come and I will marry you. In the meantime, guess who the word got to? Who is it that appears in all these female stories? Aisha, radiyallahu anha. When Aisha learned that Atika was getting ready to marry Umar, remember Abdullah was her brother. Aisha got angry. She said, wait a minute. She sent the following message to her. Remember when you said, Atika, that I swear that my eyes will never cease to stop crying for you. And I swear that my skin will be yellow with dye. Give us back our property. That's what Aisha said. So, subhanallah, and that's when Atika sent her slave back to Aisha to tell her, I'm already returning the property. She said, I had already went to Ali, and Ali told me to give the property back. So don't worry, Aisha, you getting your property back, and I'm marrying Umar. So not only did she marry Umar as her third husband, but to show how badly Umar wanted her, Umar gave her an equivalent sum of money. However much that garden was worth, he gave her the equal amount in money. He said, this is for you. So you not losing no garden. They can keep their property. Here's some money. And to show how righteous Atika was, she distributed all that money in charity as a means of expiating herself for breaking her vow, her oath to Abdullah. So that shows she always loved Abdullah. You know, your first love is always something you don't forget. And we believe that Abdullah was her first love. Subhanallah. So she paid the money in charity as a means of breaking her oath. And Aisha went on happy about her business because they got their land back. Okay. All right. So for those of you who don't know, Umar radiallahu anhu was known as having a heavy hand. Umar had many wives. He used to hit them. But they say he never laid a hand on Atika. Atika mesmerized Umar. He could not pull himself away from her, just like Abdullah couldn't. Whenever Umar would go out on the battlefield, when he would come home, he'd first go to her and he'd close himself up in the house with her. And people wouldn't see him for a few days. They say she's the only wife that they never heard him say anything bad about. She's the only wife that he was extremely, extremely jealous of. He was jealous of all his wives, but with her, it was different. For example, we have the story that the governor of Basra sent a carpet, a red carpet, a red tapestry to Atika as a gift. He didn't know her, just being nice after, Basra converted to Islam. When Umar saw the carpet, he snatched it up off the floor and told the governor of Basra to come to him. And when the governor of Basra arrived, he said, what made you send a gift to my wife? And then Umar took the red rug, hit the man in the head with it and said, take this garbage back. We don't need that. If my wife want a red rug, I'd give it to her. That's how jealous he was of Atika. Atika just had this ability. She was beautiful, soft-spoken, and this was something rare about Arabic women. Arabic women were beautiful, but that soft-spokenness. Arabic women are known for being aggressive. Arabic women are known for being outspoken. Y'all know we did the story of the Prophet's wives. They were outspoken women. Okay, we did the story of Safiya, of Hani. Hani was outspoken. So for a woman to be, soft-spoken and not speak much, that was rare. So a lot of people believe that's what it was that mesmerized the people about her, because she wasn't as aggressive as other Arabic women were. And when she did speak, her voice was so low and so soft. Arabic women are loud. For those of you who don't know, we're loud. Okay? Atika was very, very devoted to worship. And this is another thing that's rare. Even though the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said a woman gets more blessings praying at home, but if she wants to go to the mosque to pray, don't refuse her. Atika, she would never go to the mosque without asking Umar's permission. A lot of women didn't do that back then. They just go to the mosque because, again, Arabic women are aggressive. They ain't passive. The Arabic women are not this submissive, this submissive thing that these brothers want y'all to think. That's why these brothers that tell y'all that you're supposed to be submissive, ain't none of them married to an Arab woman, because Arab women are not submissive like that. They're warriors. They're warriors. Like the Vikings, they're warriors. But Atika was different. She would never go to the mosque without asking his permission. And Umar would let her go, but he let her know he didn't like it. He just didn't like it because he was so jealous. He wanted her to stay home because he liked to be up underneath her too. But he never stopped her from going. So that's another thing. She was submissive. She had that soft voice, plus beautiful to look at. And of course, as everybody knows, Atika stayed married to Umar until he was martyred. As you guys know, now he was killed too. His brother was martyred. Abdullah was martyred. And now her third husband, Umar, radiallahu anha, was martyred. And when he was martyred, she made a poem about him too. In her poem, she spoke about how he was a person who had a beautiful, bright face, who used to recite the Quran, and who used to always talk to Allah, and how he was kind to the weak, strong against his enemies, and who was steadfast when faced with trials. And she said he never lied, and he was quick to help others, and he didn't deal with people who were shady. So she wrote a poem up about him. And for those of you who don't know, she was there. The day that Umar was assassinated at the mosque, she was there. She saw it happen. And this is the poem that she composed about him. She said, "My eyes, let your tears and weeping be abundant and not weary over this noble leader. Death has afflicted me in the fall of a horseman who's distinguished in the day of battle." So she wrote a very powerful poem about him. She said, compassionate to those who were close to him and tough against his enemies. Someone you could trust in times of bad fortune and who would answer you. And whenever he gave his word, he never broke it. And he was quick to do good deeds, and he never had a frown on his face. So she loved Umar too. And that's the poem that she wrote when he was killed. And it wasn't long after that. After Umar died, Atika married another man. She married Zubayr ibn Awwam, but it shows how intelligent she was. Who was Zubayr? Zubayr was the companion of the Prophet, who the Prophet talked about before. A woman came to him and said, "Oh, Prophet of Allah, two men want to marry me. One is Zubayr and the other one is Muawiyah." Remember, the Prophet said, Zubayr, he's poor. Plus, he likes to beat up on his women. Okay, this is the Zubayr that the Prophet was speaking about. All right, so Zubayr approached her after her waiting period from Umar, but she made a condition of their marriage. She put it in her marriage contract that he would never put his hands on her, and that he will continue to allow her to go to the mosque whenever she wanted, and that he would not withhold any of her rights. She put that in her marriage contract because she knew of him. She knew that he was known for hitting his women, and he was known for being strict with his wives. And that shows how important a marriage contract is, guys. And you can put that in your contract, that if your husband hits you, because if he hits you, that gives you reason to divorce him. Whatever you put in that contract that you and your husband agree upon, if he breaks it, that's grounds for divorce. So that shows how smart Atika was. She put it in her contract that he not hit her. So that way, if he ever did, she could get out of the marriage real quick. And also that he never stops her from going to the mosque whenever she wants, because she loved to go to the mosque to pray. And also that he would not withhold any of her rights that Allah has given her. This is the type of stuff you women need to put in y'all marriage contracts. So that way, if they violate it, you can get out of it. Zubayr regretted the fact that he agreed to this. And the thing that he regretted the most was her going to the prayers. So he used to try to talk her out of it. He would tell her, you get more blessings praying at home. Why don't you stay home? And she would say to him, are you so jealous that you want me to stay away from the place where I used to pray with the Prophet, Abu Bakr and Umar. She said, you that jealous? Because again, he was jealous of her. She was beautiful, soft, submissive. And since he did not forbid her to not go to the mosque, this is what Zubair did. Shows how smart he was. One day at nighttime, when Atika was going to the mosque to pray, he hid behind a pillar. And when she walked past him, he slapped her derriere in the dark. She didn't know who it was, but she said, oh my God, whoever you are, may Allah take off your hand. And it scared her. So she stopped going to the mosque at night. And so 2 days later, Zubair asked her, why aren't you going to the night prayer? She said, people have become too evil. It scared her. And we also have another hadith that Zubair ended up confessing to her that he was the one who slapped her behind. And anyway, she decided after that incident, she's prayed at home after that. Okay, so that was her fourth husband. Her first husband, the brother of Umar, who got martyred. Second husband, Abdullah, got martyred. Third husband, Umar, got martyred. Fourth husband, Zubair. Zubair too was killed, as you guys know. He was killed during the Battle of the Camel with Aisha. Remember, guys, Zubair was the one that convinced Aisha, him and Abu Talha, to fight to get the revenge for the murder of Uthman. Well, Zubair met a tragic death during that battle. And when he died, Atika composed a poem for him too. She said, if he could have been awakened, he would have found not shaking. He would have been found not afraid. You will be lucky to find anyone like him amongst those who are left, who come and go. If you ever killed a Muslim, then you must suffer the penalty for murder, because they killed him. They mutilated his body. He had a terrible ending, but he will be one of the companions in paradise. He too was given the news of paradise. Okay, so she loved him. She had a good marriage with him too. Okay. When that's when the people gave Atika the nickname of the woman of the wife of the martyrs, because when Zubair was killed at the Battle of the Camel, a lot of people were sad. Not only was he killed, but Talha too. And that's, the people were sad. This is when the companions were fighting against each other. So many eminent companions were killed during the Battle of the Camel. It was sad, a sad event. But that's when they gave the nickname to Atika. They said, any man who wants to die a martyr should marry Atika, the daughter of Zayd, because every husband she's married died a martyr. After Zubair was killed, Ali proposed to her. Y'all see that? And Ali was her cousin too, but she turned him down. She said, Ali, you are the caliph over the Muslims. I don't want you to die. She said, so I refuse to marry you, because this is when she began to question. She said, maybe something's wrong with me. Maybe I am the wife of the martyrs. She said, every husband I marry ends up being killed. So she told Ali, no, I'm not going to marry you, because I don't want you to end up killed too. But as you all know, Ali ended up killed anyway. He was martyred. And that's when she said, well, maybe I ain't cursed, because she was beginning to think she was cursed. She remained single for a while after Zubair. But guess who her last husband was? Her fifth and final husband was Ali's son, Hussein. She married Hussein, the grandson of the Prophet Muhammad. And guess what, guys? She was 20 years older than him, but her beauty was still strong. That attraction that men felt towards her was still there. So I don't know where these brothers today get this. Maybe if they would stay married long enough to their wives, they would realize that Allah made women different than men. Everything with a man starts to go downhill when they turn 32 sexually. But for us women, you brothers, if you would stay married to your wives over the age of 40, you would realize her sex drive is stronger than yours. That's the way Allah made us. The older a woman gets, the more viral she becomes, the more sensual she becomes, the more sexy she becomes. But you brothers who go around telling women, making statements that don't marry a woman over the age of 30. If you would stop divorcing your wives when they're 30, you would find out that if you at 40, 50, 60, 70, she out trumps you. Most men can't keep up with their wives at those ages. Back in these days, many Arab women who were 20 years older, not just Khadija and not just Atika. There's many, I'm going to talk about some more female companions who were 20 years older than their husbands. So Atika, radiallahu anha, she married Ali's son Hussein, and he was 20 years younger than her. He too became a martyr. As you all know, he was killed at the Battle of Karbala, but Atika died before him. Atika died in the year 672. She died during the Caliph of Muawiyah, but Hussein was killed in 680. So he was martyred about 10 years later. So that's the story of Atika radiallahu anha. She was a woman that could touch the heart of any man. They say any man that saw her just fell in love with her. And it was that soft voice that she had, which is why Allah sent down those verses about us women not making our voices soft publicly, because unlike the other Arabic women, she had a soft voice. She wasn't as loud like I am. The way I speak, this is the way Aisha spoke. This is the way Fatima spoke. This is the way Salama, Khadija. Most Arabic women speak like me if they're being natural. My sister-in-law speaks this way. Ifti speaks this way. Okay? Okay, but Atika was a little different. She was soft and very poetic. Okay, so that's what those verses were sent down towards her. All right, I'm going to stop right here. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. Are there any questions or comments? And by the way, her name is going to come up again, because when I do the story of Hakam and the story of Kala and the rest of them, Atika would be on the battlefield too. You know, not only was she a beautiful woman, not only was she poetic, she was a warrior. And she was one of the women that was taken during the Caliphate of Abu Bakr. She was one of the women taken as a prisoner of war by the Romans. When Khalid bin Walid was the general of the army. I'm going to go into Atika again when I do the story of Hakam, okay? Because they were the ones that were taken and were going to be raped, but they pulled the poles out and beat off their captors. Atika was one, and so was Hani. Hani was with that bunch too. Yeah, so her name is going to come up again. Okay. Are there any questions or comments?
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. Who is that?
It's Mukthar.
Oh, there's Mukthar. Wa alaikum salam. There he is.
Hold on, real quick. First off, that's one of my favorite love stories is Abdullah and Atika.
Yes. That's
one of my favorite. But alhamdulillah, what I wanted to do, if it's with your permission, I wanted to clarify something that I said in class earlier.
Okay.
All right. Especially for little Ibrahim, because he's got a report he gotta do.
Okay, you can turn your camera on if you want. You can try it. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. See.
Let me see.
They can see you. Yeah.
Let me see. Put it on. Okay. Alhamdulillah. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Allahumma salli wa sallam ala nabiyyina Muhammad. Okay, but alhamdulillah. I always end when I say that any mistakes that is made is mine, and I ask Allah to forgive me for it. So alhamdulillah, I made a mistake, and I gave an answer earlier that didn't sit right with me. So I went and I looked it up a little bit more. So it was about Uthman ibn Affan in the Quran. So what happens is that I was incorrect in terms of the markings of Fatah, Doma, and Kasra. What happened is that when this one Quran that was with Abu Bakr, then it was passed to Umar, then it was passed to Hafsa. When the Muslims started spreading out and conquering all of these different lands, specifically in Iraq, when they were waging war, and this is from Hudayfa ibn Yaman, he writes to Uthman, who at the time is Amir al-Mu'mineen. So he's the Caliph, and he writes to him that basically, when they were going into these areas, that people were reciting the Quran differently. And then what he did is that he wrote back and he said, O commander of the faithful, save this nation before they differ about the book of Allah, as the Jews and the Christians used to do. And we know that, mashallah, this is definitely an issue in Christianity, where they have these different versions. So when they go into these places, they were reciting the Quran differently, and they started falling into a dispute. And so what he did, he asked Uthman, can you send us a correct copy of the Quran? And therefore it won't be any disputes. So what Uthman did is that he ordered Zayd ibn Thabit, and this is the person that we talked about, who Abu Bakr had comprised all of the Quran. He's formulated the committees and so on. So he had Zayd ibn Thabit, Abdullah ibn Zubayr, Sa'd ibn al-As, and Abdul Rahman ibn Harith ibn Hisham to rewrite the manuscripts of perfect copies. So what he did is that he had these many copies. So they rewrote the Mus'haf, or the Quran that Abu Bakr had, Hafsa, because it was given to Hafsa. He wrote that. I mean, they took that, they rewrote line for line perfectly, and they made sure that they went through each and every one of them to make sure that there wasn't any mistakes that was made. And then what Uthman did is that he gave a copy in order that those materials be distributed to those different parts of where Islam was starting to grow, and that way it was over and done with, where there was no dispute. Okay, so that's more so the where the markings of Fatah, Dama, and Kasra comes is one of the caliphs named Ibn Marwan, and he's the person that did that. So I want to make sure that I clarify that as far as Uthman, there was only one copy of the Quran. Other people had memorized the Quran, but then they fell into disputes as to they were disputing about the way this was recited and this was missing and that. And so he said, listen, we need to have the exact copy of the Quran so we can take away any argument, any differences of opinion, and this is what it is. And so that's what Uthman did, is that he had these four brothers write the Qurans perfectly in the way that it was collected, and then he distributed it to the different parts of where the Muslim world is, and that was over and that's done with. Okay, so inshallah, I hope that that's clear to everybody, and I'm definitely not ashamed or pride. I ain't gonna say the word ashamed, prideful when I make a mistake. That I definitely try to to correct it, inshallah. And once again, may Allah forgive me for my mistake. And I hope that's clear with everybody, inshallah.
Mashallah, that was perfect, perfect, brother. I don't even think they caught it because that's probably when that stream was down. Because I don't even remember you. Yeah, I did when you was talking about it. Yeah, but you, yeah, okay.
Yeah, because little Ibrahim, he asked about that. I'm like, no, the Fatah did that. So it did not. There were no during the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam when Abu Bakr and Uthman and Omar, may Allah be pleased with them, there were no fatas, domas, and kesras. But they, according to them, they knew how to read the Quran based upon that, and it didn't come until later with this particular, I want to say, is the fifth caliph. He came, or he was a caliph, and what I did, I put it on Sunnah followers too.
Okay.
So inshallah, I made sure that I put it on there, but I wanted to make sure too, if anybody was listening to this, and and it's recorded. So if somebody could say, oh, Mukthar gave us the wrong thing. No, I went back and I tried to correct the mistake that I made, inshallah.
Okay. Mashallah, mashallah.